The Galactic Coliseum stood at the heart of Vex Prime, a massive structure that could be seen from orbit. Inside, 50,000 beings from across the galaxy gathered to watch disputes being settled the old way. Through combat, it was tradition, it was law, it was entertainment. Princess Lyra of the Valtorian Empire walked through the diplomatic hall with her head held high. She stood 8 feet tall, her skin covered in natural crystalline plates that shimmered like diamonds under the station's lights. Behind her, 6 royal guards marched in perfect formation. Each one was a warrior who had never known defeat. The Valtorians were proud of this fact. They had challenged 17 different species for territory, and 17 times they had won. Across the hall, Commander Jinwoo Park sat quietly at the human delegation table. He was average height for a human, maybe 5'10", with short dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple gray uniform with Earth's insignia on the shoulder. Next to him, Captain Minji Han reviewed documents on her datapad, occasionally glancing at the Valtorian delegation with concern. Ambassador Hyun Cho was speaking with the Valtorian representatives, trying to negotiate mineral rights to 3 outer colony worlds that humanity had recently settled. The talks were not going well. The Valtorians wanted those worlds. They believed might gave them the right to take whatever they wanted. Lyra grew tired of the talking. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. The sound cut through the diplomatic chatter like a blade. Every head in the room turned to look at her. Enough of this endless talk, Lyra announced, her voice carrying easily across the hall. The Valtorian Empire claims the 3 worlds of the Tanis sector. We invoke the right of combat challenge. A murmur ran through the assembled aliens. The right of combat was ancient and binding. Once invoked, there was no diplomatic solution. Only blood or surrender. Ambassador Hyun's face went pale. Princess Lyra, surely we can reach an agreement without violence. These worlds have human families, children. Then you should have defended them better, Lyra interrupted. She looked around the room with barely concealed contempt. Where is your champion? Or do humans prefer to hide behind words when action is required? Jinwoo set down his cup of coffee slowly. He stood up, his movements calm and deliberate. I accept your challenge, Princess. The room went completely silent. Even the translator devices seemed to pause in shock. Minji grabbed his arm. Commander, you can't be serious. Look at her. Look at them. Jinwoo gently removed her hand. I'm very serious, Captain. He walked forward, stopping at the center of the hall. He looked small compared to Lyra, like a child standing before an adult. Lyra stared down at him, then began to laugh. It was not a kind laugh. You? You are their champion? She circled him slowly, examining him like one might examine a broken tool. You have no armor, no natural weapons. Your bones look like they would snap if I breathed on them too hard. Perhaps, Jinwoo said calmly, but I'm the one standing here accepting your challenge. Will you face me, or was your challenge just empty words? Lyra's eyes flashed with anger. No one spoke to her that way. You won't last a minute against me, human. When you fall, your people will surrender those worlds and think twice before claiming territory in Valtorian space. If I fall, Jinwoo corrected quietly. The formal challenge was recorded by the council witness, a floating sphere that documented all official galactic business. The combat would take place in 3 hours. Standard rules applied, no weapons beyond what each fighter brought personally. Fight until surrender, incapacitation, or death. The gravity would be set to Earth normal as per Jinwoo's single request. Lyra granted this mockingly. Let the human have his comfortable gravity. It will not save him. Back in the human delegation's private room, chaos erupted. Ambassador Hyun paced back and forth, his face red. Commander Park, what were you thinking? This is suicide. She'll kill you in seconds. Maybe, Jinwoo said. He was doing simple stretches, rolling his shoulders and neck. Minji dismissed the other staff members, waiting until they were alone before speaking. Sir, I know who you are. I know what you did during the war. But this is different. She's not human. The Valtorians are stronger, faster, and nearly indestructible. Jinwoo touched his toes, held the position, then straightened. Captain, what do you think happens if I refuse this challenge? We lose 3 colonies, but our people live. And then? Jinwoo prompted. What happens next month when another aggressive species sees that humans can be pushed around? What happens when they realize we're physically weaker than most galactic races? He looked at her directly. We've been in space for 5 years. 5 years. Every species out there is watching to see if we're prey or predators. Minji was quiet for a long moment. The ghost program. You're going to use it. I'm going to show them what humans learned during our worst years, Jinwoo said quietly. I'm going to show them why being the weakest doesn't mean being helpless. In the Valtorian preparation chamber, Lyra's advisors helped her into ceremonial war armor. It was beautiful and deadly, each plate etched with the names of her victories. Her weapon was a great sword as tall as a human, its edge glowing with contained plasma that could cut through steel like paper. The human is either very brave or very stupid, one advisor commented. Stupid, Lyra said flatly, but I will grant him an honorable death. He faced me when others would have hidden. That deserves respect even if he is weak. The Colosseum filled rapidly. Word of the challenge had spread, and beings from hundreds of species wanted to watch. Bookmakers set up odds, 100 to 1 against the human. Some bookmakers wouldn't even take bets on Jinwoo winning because it seemed like stealing money. Lieutenant Do-hyun Kwon and Sergeant Jiwon Bayek, both part of the human security detail, found seats near the arena floor. They wore casual clothes, not uniforms. To everyone else, they looked like simple staff members. Should we have told them? Do-hyun asked quietly. Told them what? That Commander Park can kill in 17 different ways before most people can blink? Jiwon shook her head. Let them learn. The arena floor was simple. A circular platform 50 meters across with a low wall around the edge to keep fighters from falling out. No obstacles, no cover. Just open space designed for direct combat. Lyra entered first to thunderous applause. She raised her sword high and the crowd roared approval. She was magnificent, a warrior queen in her prime. The lights reflected off her crystalline skin like starlight. Then Jinwoo walked out. The crowd fell nearly silent, just a few confused murmurs. He wore simple black combat fatigues. His only weapon was a standard-issue tactical baton, about 2 feet long, made of dense composite material. Compared to Lyra's massive plasma sword, it looked like a toy. He walked to his side of the arena and stood relaxed, hands at his sides, breathing slowly and evenly. He looked almost bored. Lyra pointed her sword at him. Last chance, human. Surrender now and I will ask for mercy on your behalf. Jinwoo shook his head slightly. I appreciate the offer, princess. But no. The adjudicator, a neutral alien with 6 eyes, floated above the arena. Its voice boomed through the Colosseum. Combat will begin when the tone sounds. May honor guide your actions. Lyra settled into a combat stance, sword held ready. Jinwoo simply stood there watching her with calm attention. The tone sounded. A single clear note that rang through the arena. Lyra exploded forward, crossing 30 meters in less than 2 seconds. Her sword came down in an overhead strike that could have split a boulder. The air itself seemed to scream as the plasma edge cut through it. Jinwoo moved. Just a simple step to the side, his body angled perfectly. The sword missed him by less than an inch and struck the arena floor with a sound like thunder. The impact left a glowing crater in the reinforced metal. The crowd gasped. No one had expected the human to survive even the opening move. Lyra spun, swinging horizontally with enormous force. Jinwoo ducked under it, the blade passing through where his head had been a moment before. She thrust forward, trying to skewer him. He pivoted on one foot, his body turning like water, and the thrust missed again. For 30 seconds, Lyra attacked with everything she had. Every strike was powerful enough to kill. Every movement was faster than most beings could follow. And every single attack hit nothing but air. Jinwoo moved like smoke, like shadow, never where Lyra expected him to be. He didn't block or parry. He simply wasn't there when the attacks arrived. The crowd was no longer silent. Aliens were standing, pointing, shouting in disbelief. This wasn't supposed to happen. The human was supposed to fall immediately. Lyra's breathing grew heavier. Frustration crept into her attacks. She was swinging harder but thinking less. Jinwoo's expression never changed. Calm, focused, patient. Exactly 60 seconds after the fight began, Jinwoo finally moved toward Lyra instead of away. In a blur of motion that even the recording devices barely caught, he struck 3 times with his baton. 3 precise points on her crystalline armor. The armor cracked with sounds like breaking glass. Lines spread across the plates protecting her ribs and shoulder. Lyra stumbled backward, shock and pain crossing her face. She had been injured. For the first time in her entire combat career, someone had hurt her. The arena fell into absolute silence. 50,000 beings stopped breathing at the same moment. Minji Han remembered the first time she learned about the Ghost program. It was classified information, buried so deep that most people in Earth's military didn't even know it existed. She had only found out because she was assigned to protect one of its graduates, Commander Jin-Woo Park. The program started during Earth's Civil War, back before humanity reached the stars. It was a dark time. Nations fought nations. Corporations fought governments. Millions died. In that chaos, someone decided that humanity needed soldiers who could end conflicts quickly and quietly. Ghosts. That's what they called them. The modifications weren't obvious. No chrome limbs or glowing eyes, nothing that would make them stand out in a crowd. Instead, the changes were internal. Their nervous systems were rebuilt to process information faster. Their bones were reinforced at the molecular level. Their muscles were optimized for efficiency. Their brains were enhanced to process tactical information like computers. But the real change was mental. They learned to control pain, to think clearly in chaos, to read opponents like books. They studied every martial art, every weapon, every way humans had ever found to kill each other. And humanity, Minji knew, had spent thousands of years getting very good at that. Jinwoo had been one of the best. His file showed 47 successful operations, 0 casualties among friendlies, target elimination rate of 100%. He was a ghost in the truest sense, appearing where he was needed and disappearing when the job was done. When the war ended, most Ghost program operatives retired. The program was officially dissolved. The world wanted to forget that such people had existed. Jinwoo chose to become a diplomat. He said he wanted to build things instead of breaking them. Minji respected that choice, but she never forgot what he really was underneath the calm exterior and diplomatic smile. Now, watching him crack Princess Lyra's supposedly unbreakable armor, she wondered if the galaxy was ready for this revelation. The fight was suspended for medical evaluation. Lyra limped off the arena floor, her advisors rushing to support her. The cracks in her armor were spreading, the crystalline structure compromised. Her breathing was labored. 3 precise strikes had done what armies couldn't accomplish. In the medical bay, a Valtorian doctor examined Lyra's injuries with increasing concern. The fractures in your armor have caused internal damage. Your rib plate is cracked. You need time to heal. How long? Lyra demanded. At least 3 days for the... Not acceptable. I can continue. The doctor's expression showed clear disagreement, but Lyra was royalty. He couldn't force her to stop. Around them, her advisors argued in heated whispers. You should withdraw, her chief advisor said. Claim the human used illegal technology. Demand an investigation. Lyra's eyes flashed dangerously. I will do no such thing. I challenged him to honorable combat. He accepted. If I withdraw now on false claims, I shame not just myself but our entire empire. But your highness, he injured you. That's not supposed to be possible. And that, Lyra said slowly, is exactly why I must continue. I need to understand what he is, what humans are. Across the station in the human medical bay, Jinwoo sat quietly while a medic checked his vitals. Everything was normal. Pulse steady, no injuries. He hadn't even broken a sweat. Ambassador Hyon burst into the room. Commander, the council is in chaos. Half of them want to investigate you for illegal modifications. The other half want to hire human trainers for their militaries. The betting houses are threatening lawsuits because you've broken their probability models. Jinwoo accepted a bottle of water from the medic. And Princess Lyra? Injured but insisting she'll continue. The fight resumes in 1 hour. Hyon sat down heavily. Can you tell me what just happened out there? How did you crack her armor? The Valtorians are supposed to be nearly indestructible. Everything has weak points, Jinwoo said simply. The crystalline structure of Valtorian skin follows specific patterns. Hit those patterns at the right angle with the right force and they fracture. It's physics. But how did you know where to hit? Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. During the war, I learned to analyze targets quickly. Structure, movement patterns, weaknesses. It's like reading a language. Once you understand the grammar, you can predict the sentences. Minji spoke up from the doorway. He's being modest, Ambassador. The Ghost program trained him to identify and exploit weaknesses in less than 30 seconds of observation. He's been watching Valtorians since we arrived at the station. He knew exactly where to strike before the fight even started. Hyon looked between them. Ghost program? I've never heard of it. You weren't supposed to, Jinwoo said. It doesn't exist anymore. Hasn't for 5 years. But you do, Yan said quietly. And if there's one of you, are there others? Jinwoo glanced at Minji, who gave a slight nod. Lieutenant Do-hyun and Sergeant Ji-won. They're listed as security staff in our delegation. They're also Ghost Program graduates. Hyun's face went through several expressions before settling on resignation. So Earth sent diplomatic staff who are actually elite assassins to First Contact? Former assassins, Jinwoo corrected. And yes. Would you have preferred to send people who couldn't defend themselves if things went wrong? Before Hyun could answer, a station-wide announcement interrupted. Attention. The combat challenge will resume in 30 minutes. All spectators, please return to your seats. Jinwoo stood and began stretching again. Minji watched him carefully. Sir, she's going to fight differently now. You've shown her that raw power doesn't work. She'll try to think tactically. Good, Jinwoo said. That means she's learning. It also means she's smart enough to be respected. You respect her? Minji asked, surprised. She's a warrior who had the courage to face an unknown threat personally instead of sending others. She's royalty who chose to honor her challenge despite being injured rather than making excuses. Yes, I respect that. He rolled his shoulders. Respect doesn't mean I'll lose, but it means I'll fight her properly. In another part of the station, Sora Yoon was working in the main medical center when she received an unusual request. Princess Lyra wanted to speak with a human doctor, specifically one who understood human combat capabilities. Sora was young for a ship's doctor, only 32, but she had served during the Civil War. She knew things about human physiology that weren't in standard medical texts. When she entered the private medical room where Lyra waited, she bowed respectfully. You requested a human medical consultant, Your Highness? Lyra studied her carefully. I need to understand what your champion is. He moves like nothing I've ever seen. He struck points on my armor that shouldn't have been vulnerable. What is he? Sora considered how much to reveal. Commander Park is human. Nothing more, nothing less. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give without violating medical privacy, Sora said carefully. But I can tell you about humans in general if that helps. Lyra gestured for her to continue. We're weak compared to most galactic species, Sora began. We have no natural armor, no claws, no poison, no special abilities. In a straight physical contest, we lose to almost everyone. She paused. So we learned not to fight straight physical contests. We learned to use tools, to think strategically, to adapt constantly. We spent thousands of years fighting each other and we got very, very good at it. But that still doesn't explain his precision, Lyra insisted. The way he moved. The way he knew exactly where to strike. Sora met her eyes. Before we joined the galactic community, Earth went through a terrible war. We learned things during that war. Things about what humans can become when pushed to our limits. Commander Park is a product of that time. That's all I can say. Lyra absorbed this information. So he's not exceptional for a human warrior. I didn't say that. He's exceptional even by our standards. But the principles he uses, the adaptability, the tactical thinking, those are human traits. Any trained human fighter would approach combat the same way. Some would just do it better than others. After Sora left, Lyra sat in thought. She had assumed the human was some kind of aberration, a unique specimen. But if this was simply how trained humans fought, if there were potentially thousands or millions of others who thought like him, the implications were staggering. The Colosseum filled again, even more packed than before. Word had spread across the entire station. The human who shouldn't have lasted a minute was still standing. Now beings from every corner of Vex Prime wanted to watch what happened next. The betting odds had changed dramatically. Now it was only 3-1 against Jinwoo. Some brave souls were actually betting on the human to win. Lyra entered the arena again, and this time the applause was more subdued. Her armor was partially repaired, metal plates covering the cracks, but everyone could see she was injured. She moved more carefully, favoring her left side slightly. Jinwoo entered to complete silence. The crowd didn't know what to expect anymore. This small, unarmored human had broken all their assumptions. He carried the same simple baton and wore the same calm expression. The fighters faced each other across the arena. Lyra's grip on her sword was different now. Less aggressive, more controlled. She was thinking instead of just reacting. You fought well, she said, her voice carrying across the arena. Better than I expected. Better than anyone expected. As did you, Jinwoo replied. You're strong and fast. Lyra's second attack was nothing like her first. She didn't charge blindly or rely on overwhelming power. Instead, she moved deliberately, her sword held in a defensive position, watching Jinwoo's every movement with intense focus. Jinwoo recognized the change immediately. She was thinking now. Learning. That made this much more interesting. He feinted left and she didn't take the bait. She held her position, waiting. He moved right, testing her reaction speed. She turned smoothly to face him, her sword tracking his movement but not committing to an attack. Good. She was being patient. The crowd was eerily quiet. They expected violence and spectacle, but what they were watching was something else entirely. Two fighters engaged in a mental game, each trying to read the other, each waiting for the perfect moment. Lyra struck suddenly, a horizontal slash at mid-height, but it was measured, controlled. Not a killing blow, a probing attack. Jinwoo stepped back out of range and she immediately followed with a thrust. He deflected it with his baton, redirecting the blade past his shoulder rather than trying to block the full force. The clash of weapons rang out across the arena. The crowd released a collective breath they didn't know they were holding. They exchanged several more blows, each testing the other's defenses. Lyra was learning his rhythm, his preferred distances, his movement patterns. Jinwoo was doing the same, analyzing how her injury affected her movement, where she was protecting herself, where she was still vulnerable. Then Lyra did something unexpected. She spoke while fighting. Your people are physically weak. Jinwoo dodged a slash. Yes. Yet you survived against us for thousands of years before reaching space. He ducked under a horizontal strike. We survived against each other. That's harder. Lyra paused, considering this. In that moment of thought, Jinwoo struck. His baton cracked against her sword arm, hitting the joint where her armor plates met. She grunted in pain and nearly dropped her weapon, but she didn't retreat. Instead, she surprised him by releasing the sword with one hand and punching toward his head. The blow was fast and powerful. Jinwoo barely got his arm up to deflect it. The impact sent him sliding backward several feet, his boots scraping against the arena floor. The crowd erupted in cheers. Finally, the princess had landed a hit. Jinwoo straightened slowly, rolling his shoulder. That had hurt. Even deflected, her physical strength was enormous. A direct hit would probably break bones. He smiled. Good adaptation. Lyra didn't smile back, but there was something new in her eyes. Not anger or frustration. Focus. She was fighting seriously now, not as an arrogant warrior, but as a true combatant. She switched her sword to a one-handed grip, keeping her other hand free for grappling or striking. A smart adjustment. They clashed again, and this time it was faster, more intense. Lyra combined sword strikes with punches and kicks, forcing Jinwoo to defend against multiple attack types. He responded with fluid movements, sometimes redirecting her sword, sometimes evading entirely, occasionally striking back at weak points in her armor. Neither could gain a clear advantage. Every time Jinwoo found an opening, Lyra adjusted her defense. Every time Lyra pressed an attack, Jinwoo flowed around it like water. It was beautiful in its own way, a dance of violence and precision. Minutes passed. Both fighters were breathing harder now. Lyra's injury was slowing her down, each movement causing visible pain. But Jinwoo was tiring too. Enhanced or not, he was still human. His endurance had limits. The crowd watched in complete fascination. This wasn't what anyone expected from a challenge fight. Usually these were brutal and short. One fighter dominated, the other fell. But this was something else. This was two warriors pushing each other to their absolute limits. Lyra stepped back suddenly, creating distance. You're holding back. Jinwoo didn't deny it. So are you. My injury? I'm not talking about physical limitations, Jinwoo interrupted. You're still trying to win with honor, to give the crowd a good show, to maintain your reputation. You're fighting as a princess, not as a soldier. Lyra's eyes narrowed. And you? I'm trying not to kill you, Jinwoo said bluntly. Every strike I've made has been calculated to injure, not to end your life. But if we keep going, one of us will make a mistake. Someone will die. Is that really what you want? The arena was silent. Every being present could hear the conversation through the arena's sound system. What do you propose? Lyra asked carefully. Before Jinwoo could answer, alarm sirens began blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights started flashing. The crowd looked around in confusion and growing panic. A voice boomed over the station-wide communication system. Emergency, emergency, hostile fleet detected. Multiple vessels emerging from hyperspace. All station personnel report to defensive positions. This is not a drill. The adjudicator's voice cut through the noise. The combat challenge is suspended pending resolution of the station emergency. Combatants will... The station shook violently. Explosions sounded in the distance. More alarms joined the cacophony. On the arena's massive display screens, images appeared. Ships, dozens of them. Ugly, asymmetric vessels covered in weapons and armor plating. Krill raiders, someone in the crowd shouted. The word spread like wildfire, followed by panic. Jinwoo knew about the Krill. Everyone did. They were one of the few species that the galactic community universally feared, not because they were individually strong or particularly intelligent, but because they were relentless. They attacked in massive numbers, driven by instinct rather than strategy, killing everything in their path. They were berserkers, barely sentient, interested only in destruction and claiming territory. And now they were here, attacking Vex Prime. The crowd began rushing for the exits. Beings trampled over each other in their panic to reach the escape pods. The station shook again, harder this time. Something big had just struck the outer hull. Lyra looked at Jinwoo across the arena. For a moment, their personal challenge seemed absurdly meaningless. What did territory disputes matter when everyone on the station might die in the next hour? Jinwoo made a decision. He crossed the arena quickly, stopping in front of Lyra. We need to help with the defense. Lyra's training as a warrior overrode everything else. Agreed. She turned to her guards who had remained at their posts despite the chaos. With me. We defend this station. Princess, we should evacuate you immediately, her chief advisor protested. No, we are Valtorian warriors. We do not flee. Lyra looked at Jinwoo. Where do you suggest we go? Jinwoo was already moving toward the exit, speaking into his communicator. Minji, status report. Minji's voice came back immediately, professional despite the crisis. Krill have breached the outer defensive perimeter. Station security is overwhelmed. They're sending boarding parties to key locations. Main reactor life support command center. How many defenders does the station have? Maybe 200 security personnel. Against an estimated 1,500 Krill boarders. Sir, we're outnumbered 7-1. Jinwoo processed this information rapidly. Rally all human personnel. Combat trained or not, I don't care. Also, contact Lieutenant Do-Yun and Sergeant Ji-Won. Tell them it's time to stop pretending to be diplomats. Yes, sir. Where are you? With Princess Lyra and her guard. We're heading to coordinate a defense. He glanced at Lyra. How many fighters can you gather? My personal guard are all here. 6 of our best. There are perhaps 20 other Valtorian civilians on the station who have combat training. Get them. We'll need everyone. They ran through the corridors together, an unlikely alliance born of necessity. Behind them, the sounds of battle were getting closer. Energy weapons fire. Explosions. Screaming. They reached a defensive choke point where station security had set up a barrier. The security chief, a 4-armed alien named Vex, looked relieved to see them. Princess, Commander, we can use all the help we can get. The Krill are advancing through sections 7 through 12. We've lost contact with the teams there. How long until reinforcements arrive? Lyra asked. The nearest fleet is 3 hours away. We need to hold until then. 3 hours. Jinwoo looked at their defensive position. It was poorly organized, with fighters scattered randomly and no clear fields of fire. Vex, I need tactical command of this position. The security chief bristled. I'm in charge of station security. And you're about to get everyone killed, Jinwoo said bluntly. Look at your deployment. You have heavy weapons in the front and light weapons in the back. That's backwards. Your fighters are too spread out to support each other. There's no fallback position if the line breaks. With all respect, you're set up to fail. Vex looked at their position with fresh eyes and saw what Jinwoo meant. Pride warred with practicality on his face. Practicality 1. What do you recommend? Let me show you. Over the next 10 minutes, Jinwoo completely reorganized their defensive line. He moved the heavy weapon users to elevated positions with clear sight lines. He created overlapping fields of fire so every approach was covered by multiple shooters. He designated fallback positions so they could retreat in stages, rather than breaking completely. He positioned the strongest fighters, including Lyra and her guards, as a mobile reserve to plug gaps or counterattack. Minji arrived with 30 humans, everyone from their delegation who could hold a weapon. Right behind her came Do-hyun and Ji-won, now wearing combat gear instead of casual clothes. The second wave of Krill was larger than the first. They learned nothing from their losses. They didn't learn. That was their nature. They simply came again, driven by instinct, howling their rage at anything that lived. The defensive line held, but barely. Vex's security forces were taking casualties. A 4-armed defender went down, dragged away by a fast Krill that had gotten through the line. 2 Valtorian civilians fell when a massive Krill crashed into their position. Jinwoo's tactical organization kept them from being overrun, but the mathematics were simple and brutal. The Krill had numbers. The defenders did not. Lyra fought at the front, her sword cutting through Krill armor like it was paper. Her natural strength made her devastating in close combat, but even she was slowing down. Her earlier injury from the arena fight was bleeding again, her movements becoming more careful, more protective. "Princess, you need medical attention," one of her guards called out between waves. "After we survive," Lyra growled back. "If we survive." Jinwoo was coordinating the defense while simultaneously fighting. He moved between positions, reinforcing weak points, calling out Krill movements before they happened, directing fire to maximize effect. Do-hyun and Ji-won fought like shadows, appearing where needed, taking down key targets, then disappearing back into the defensive line. Minji coordinated the human personnel with practiced efficiency. She directed the engineers to create additional barriers from debris. She had the medical staff set up a triage area behind the front line. She organized ammunition distribution, so no one ran dry at a critical moment. If Jinwoo was the brain of their defense, Minji was the nervous system keeping everything connected. An hour passed. Then 2. The Krill kept coming, but in smaller numbers now. The defenders were exhausted, wounded, running low on ammunition. But they were holding, barely. Then Vex received an emergency communication. His face went pale, which was impressive for a species that normally had purple skin. "Commander Park, Princess Lyra, we have a critical problem." Jinwoo reloaded his weapon, a captured Krill rifle now since his baton had broken an hour ago. "What problem?" "The Krill have sent a strike force to the main reactor. 20 of their heavy combat forms. If they breach the reactor core, the resulting explosion will destroy the entire station." Lyra wiped Krill blood from her face. "How long until they reach it?" "They're there now. They're trying to break through the final security door, maybe 10 minutes before they succeed." "Send reinforcements," Jinwoo said immediately. "We don't have reinforcements. Everyone is committed to defensive positions. If we pull people from here, the Krill will break through and slaughter the civilians we're protecting." Jinwoo looked at the defensive line. Vex was right. They were stretched impossibly thin already. Taking any fighters away would create gaps that would collapse immediately. But if the reactor went critical, defensive positions wouldn't matter. Everyone would die. "How many fighters would it take to stop them?" Lyra asked. Vex checked his tactical display. "Against 20 heavy Krill? Minimum of 30, preferably 50. And they'd need to be good, really good. 30 fighters they didn't have." Jinwoo calculated rapidly, running through options and probabilities. Every scenario ended the same way. "Not enough people. Not enough time. I'll go," he said quietly. Everyone within earshot turned to look at him. Minji spoke first. "Sir, that's suicide. You can't fight 20 heavy Krill alone. I won't be alone." He looked at Do-hyun and Ji-won. They nodded immediately, understanding without words. Then he looked at Lyra. "Princess, I need you and 2 of your best guards. 5 of us total. 5 against 20. Lyra's voice was skeptical, but not dismissive. "That's still impossible odds. Not if we're smart about it." Jinwoo pulled up a station schematic on a datapad. "The reactor room is confined space. The Krill numbers won't matter as much in close quarters. They'll get in each other's way. We use that against them. And if we fail, then we die. The station dies and about 50,000 beings die with us." Jinwoo met her eyes. "But if we don't try, that outcome is certain. At least this way we have a chance." Lyra studied him for a long moment. This human who had fought her to a standstill in the arena, who had reorganized their defense and kept them alive against impossible odds, who was now proposing what amounted to a suicide mission with the same calm expression he wore when discussing diplomatic treaties. "Guo are either very brave or completely insane," she said. "Probably. Both. He turned to Minji. Captain, you have command of the defensive line. Hold until the fleet arrives. Sir, that's an order, Minji. These people need you here. He softened slightly. And if we don't come back, someone needs to tell Earth what happened. Make sure they know we tried. Minji's jaw tightened, but she saluted. Understood, sir. Give them hell. Lyra selected 2 of her guards. They were both veterans of dozens of battles, warriors who had never retreated in their lives. Even they looked uncertain about this mission. The 5 of them moved through the station's corridors at a run. Behind them, they could hear the ongoing battle at the defensive line. Ahead, unknown. The station shook periodically from explosions, damage spreading through its structure. They reached the reactor section in 8 minutes. The security door was heavily damaged, glowing red from heat. On the other side, they could hear the krill, screeching, pounding, cutting through the door with plasma torches. 2 minutes before breach, Jinwoo estimated. Maybe less. How do we do this? Lyra asked. She was trusting his tactical expertise completely now. Pride had no place in survival. Jinwoo surveyed the area quickly. The reactor room was large but filled with equipment. Cooling pipes, power conduits, control stations, lots of cover but also lots of places for krill to hide. We don't fight them head on. We can't win that way. We fight them smart. He pointed to various positions. Do-hyun, you're our eyes. High position, call out movements. Ji-won, you're our trap setter. Use the environment. Make them come to us on our terms. Princess, you and your guards are our hammer. When we create openings, you hit hard and fast. And when you? Lyra asked. I'm the bait. Before anyone could protest, the security door exploded inward. Metal fragments flew everywhere. Through the smoke and debris, the krill poured in. 20 heavy combat forms, each one massive and armored, with multiple limbs ending in blades or crushing claws. They were terrifying. Jinwoo stepped into the open, alone, and fired his weapon directly at the lead krill. The shot took it in the face, dropping it. The other 19 turned their attention to him with single-minded focus. Now, Jinwoo shouted. He ran deeper into the reactor room, the krill following with earth-shaking footsteps. His team moved to their positions. Do-hyun climbed to a high catwalk, getting a view of the entire room. Ji-won started overloading power conduits, creating explosive traps. Lyra and her guards flanked around, using equipment for cover. The first krill caught up to Jinwoo. He slid under its legs, firing up into its softer underside as he passed. It screeched and collapsed. 18 left. 3 more came at him from different angles. He couldn't dodge all of them. One massive claw came down where he'd been a second before, pulverizing metal decking. He was already moving, climbing up a coolant pipe to gain elevation. The krill followed, their weight bending the pipe. Ji-won now, Do-hyun called out. Ji-won triggered her trap. A power conduit exploded right beneath 4 krill, the blast hurling them backward. 2 didn't get up. 16 left. But the explosion also damaged the reactor's cooling system. Alarms began blaring. The reactor temperature started rising. They had maybe 5 minutes before automatic safety systems would trigger a shutdown. And if the systems were damaged, there would be no shutdown. Just meltdown. Lyra charged from cover, her sword taking a krill's head clean off. Her guards flanked her, using their natural armor to absorb hits while she did the killing. 3 more krill fell to their coordinated assault. 13 left. The remaining krill split their attention now. Some chased Jinwoo. Others went after Lyra's group. 2 tried to climb up to Do-hyun. They were learning. Adapting. That should have been impossible for krill. But these heavy combat forms had just enough intelligence to change tactics. Jinwoo found himself cornered against the reactor core itself. 4 krill advancing on him. Behind him, the reactor housing was hot enough to melt flesh. In front of him, death in multiple forms. No way out. Do-hyun's voice came over their communication link. Commander, duck and cover your head. Jinwoo didn't hesitate. He dropped flat and covered his head with his arms. A massive coolant pipe above the krill exploded, super-cooled liquid nitrogen spraying everywhere. The krill froze solid instantly, their screeches cutting off mid-sound. The liquid missed Jinwoo by inches. Thanks, he gasped, getting up. 9 krill left, but the nitrogen explosion had caused more damage to the cooling system. The reactor temperature was climbing faster. 3 minutes until critical. The remaining krill seemed to sense this. They stopped trying to kill the defenders and started attacking the reactor itself, trying to accelerate the meltdown. They're going to blow it anyway, Lyra shouted. She was bleeding from multiple wounds, barely staying on her feet. Jinwoo's mind raced through options. They couldn't kill all 9 krill in 3 minutes. But maybe they didn't need to. Ji-won! Can you manually activate the emergency cooling system? Not from here. The medical bay of Vex Prime was overwhelmed. Hundreds of wounded from dozens of species filled every available space. The medical staff moved between patients in a constant rush, trying to save as many as possible. The krill attack had been devastating even though the station survived. Sora Yoon worked without stopping for 6 hours straight. She moved from one patient to another, human and alien alike, using every bit of her training and experience. When she finally reached Jinwoo's bed, he was already awake despite the pain medication. You should be unconscious, she said, checking his wounded leg. The krill claw had cut deep, but it would heal. The amount of medication I gave you would knock out most people for 12 hours. Ghost program modifications include drug resistance, Jinwoo said. His voice was tired but steady. How is Ji-won? Sergeant Baek will live. She has a concussion, 3 broken ribs, and significant radiation exposure, but she'll recover. Lieutenant Do-yoon has minor injuries. Princess Lyra, Sora paused. She's in worse shape than she's admitting. Her injuries from your arena fight combined with the reactor battle have caused serious internal damage. She needs surgery, but she's refusing to go into medical suspension until she speaks with you. Let her speak with me then. Doctor's orders. Sora shook her head but couldn't help smiling slightly. You humans are all stubborn, fine, but only for 10 minutes. Then you both rest. Lyra came in 20 minutes later, supported by one of her surviving guards. Her armor had been removed, revealing the extent of her injuries. The crystalline plates of her skin were cracked in multiple places, and the blue blood beneath showed through. She should have been in surgery already, but Valtorian royalty didn't follow medical advice they disagreed with. She sat down carefully in the chair next to Jinwoo's bed. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. 2 warriors who had tried to kill each other less than a day ago and then saved each other's lives hours later. Your sergeant is very brave, Lyra said finally. That explosion she caused saved us all. She's a good soldier. They all are. The station's security is calling your team heroes. The council wants to award you medals. The civilians want to build statues. Lyra's expression was complex. I came here to take your territory. Now I owe you my life. You don't owe me anything. You fought just as hard. Your guards died protecting us all. But I wouldn't have survived without your tactics, your planning, your ability to turn impossible situations into merely difficult ones. She met his eyes. When we fought in the arena, I thought I understood what you were. A skilled fighter with unusual training. But in that reactor room, I saw something else. I saw what humans become when everything depends on them. Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. We're not special, Princess. We're just very experienced at surviving when we shouldn't. That's what makes you terrifying. Lyra shifted in her chair, wincing at the pain. I've decided to withdraw my territorial claim. The 3 worlds remain with Earth. I appreciate that. I'm also proposing a formal alliance between the Valtorian Empire and humanity. That made Jinwoo pause. That's a significant political decision. Are you authorized to make it? I am a princess and a warrior. My word carries weight. Besides, after today, I suspect my father, the Emperor, will agree. She smiled slightly. We Valtorians respect strength. You've proven humans have that, even if it's not the kind we expected. An alliance would benefit both our peoples, Jinwoo agreed carefully. But it needs to be built on more than just respect from combat. We need to understand each other. Learn from each other. I agree, which is why I want to propose a military and cultural exchange program. Valtorian warriors train with human soldiers. Human diplomats learn from Valtorian traditions. We share knowledge and build true cooperation. Jinwoo extended his hand, the human gesture for agreement. Lyra looked at it, then carefully took it in her larger hand. They shook, formally and officially creating an alliance that would reshape galactic politics. Ambassador Hyon came in a few minutes later, looking exhausted but pleased. Commander Park, the council meeting just ended. I have good news and strange news. Start with the good news, Jinwoo said. The krill attack has been completely repelled. The fleet destroyed their remaining ships. Vex Prime is secure. Casualties were significant but much lower than they could have been, thanks to the defensive coordination you organized. You're being credited with saving the station. It wasn't just me. Everyone fought. Yes, but you led them. Which brings me to the strange news. 3 other species have formally requested diplomatic meetings with Earth. They want to discuss military cooperation agreements. The Galactic Council is concerned. Concerned about what? Lyra asked. Concerned that humans are suddenly very interesting to everyone. Concerned about how quickly humans adapted to galactic politics. Concerned that a species they dismissed as weak 5 years ago just demonstrated significant military capability. Eon smiled slightly. They're worried that they underestimated us. They did, Lyra said bluntly. We all did. Over the next 3 days, as Vex Prime repaired itself and the wounded healed, the story of the battle spread across the galaxy. The tale grew with each retelling, as stories always do. But the core facts remained the same. A small team of humans had held defensive positions against overwhelming odds. 5 fighters had stopped 20 krill-heavy combat forms and saved the reactor, and a human commander had turned a panicked defensive disaster into an organized resistance. The betting houses, which had lost enormous amounts of money when Jinwoo survived his arena fight with Lyra, now found themselves dealing with a new problem. Every species wanted to hire human military advisors. The demand was astronomical. Earth's government was caught completely off guard. They had sent diplomatic missions to make friends and establish peaceful relations. Instead, their diplomats had become famous warriors, and humanity was suddenly one of the most sought-after military allies in the galaxy. 6 months after the events at Vex Prime, significant changes had occurred. The Human-Valtorian alliance was official and growing stronger. Mixed training programs were established. Valtorian warriors learned human tactics and asymmetric warfare. Human soldiers learned Valtorian strength training and armor techniques. The combination was proving devastatingly effective. Jinwoo and Lyra co-authored a military manual titled Adaptive Combat, Combining Strength and Strategy. It was initially written for the joint Human-Valtorian forces, but within weeks other species were requesting copies. Within months it was required reading at military academies across a dozen different civilizations. The manual's core philosophy was simple but revolutionary for most galactic species. Don't fight the battle your opponent expects. Don't rely only on natural advantages. Adapt constantly. Use every tool available. Think of warfare not as a test of strength, but as a problem to be solved. Jinwoo remained with the diplomatic corps, but his role changed. He was now humanity's military attaché, advising on defense agreements and training programs. He traveled to different worlds, teaching human tactical approaches and learning from alien perspectives. Everywhere he went, he was treated with a mixture of respect and wariness. Minji became his permanent second-in-command, coordinating the growing network of human military advisors across galactic space. Dohyun and Jiwon, no longer pretending to be simple diplomatic staff, openly led training programs. Other Ghost Program veterans who had been living quiet civilian lives were contacted and offered positions in Earth's expanding galactic military presence. Most accepted. Their skills were needed. Lyra recovered fully from her injuries, though the cracks in her crystalline skin remained visible as scars. She wore them proudly, calling them her human lessons. She led the Valtorian side of the alliance, pushing her people to adopt new ways of thinking while maintaining their warrior traditions. A cool evening in the training facility built on a neutral world halfway between Earth and the Valtorian homeworld. Jinwoo and Lyra sparred in the main practice arena. It was a regular occurrence now, one that always drew a crowd of students from both species. Lyra attacked with controlled power, her new sword techniques incorporating some of the flowing movements she'd learned from humans. Jinwoo defended and countered, his strikes aimed at specific weak points but pulling back before actual impact. They had fought together enough now that each knew the other's style intimately. After an hour, they stopped and bowed to each other, a gesture combining human and Valtorian traditions of respect. The watching students, a mix of humans and Valtorians, applauded. A young Valtorian warrior raised her hand. "Princess, may I ask a question?" "Of course. When you first fought Commander Park in the arena, you said he wouldn't last a minute against you. But he did. How did you know he wasn't simply lucky?" Lyra considered the question carefully. "I didn't know at first. Luck was possible. But in the reactor battle, there was no luck involved. Just skill, experience, and the ability to adapt faster than the situation changed. That's when I truly understood what I was facing." A human student asked Jinwoo, "Sir, why do you think the galaxy underestimated us so badly?" Jinwoo thought about how to answer. Because they looked at what we are physically and assumed that defined our limits. They saw that we're weaker than most species, slower than many,